a very strong team, and I think they definitely can bring their A game, but instead they kind of been in a slump recently, so hopefully we see more of them.
Well, it looks like we're going to just go ahead and skip right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the titles changed up, and which is good for us because we will not have to go to break. And of course, it is just a best of one, guys. So we will go ahead and get this best of one brought to you, commentated for you guys, and then we'll go ahead and take a break for us, of course, and of course for the players, as they will be needing a short break after it. But let me go ahead and enter this in here. This is going to be Flare versus the side of Papaceca, and it looks like Hollywood is going to be the map, so let me go ahead and link this for them. And then we'll go ahead and say that. Alright, now that I've said that the ready when teams are, we can go ahead and just continue to ramble on and talk about the game of Overwatch itself. The other interesting point to kind of bring up, I think, is that I guess it could kind of piggyback off of earlier. When it comes to the payload maps, do you think that the new methodology with the whole, I mean, it's a pseudo stopwatch with time bank. It's basically stopwatch. There's like nuances, of course, to it, but do you think that that kind of system will reward teams who do play more aggressive and obviously can get that, like, 4 or 5 minutes to get the second attempt? Or do you think this new system where it's kind of like not as relevant per se, especially on some of the hybrid maps where you could full hold first point or whatever, that you could run, methodical setups, like an all-in on a Genji blade, just get the Genji blade up, reset, get the Genji blade up, and reset over and over and over again?
Yeah, honestly, I guess there's two methodologies to this entire thing, right? There's one where it's like you can play super aggressive, take the first point very quickly, knowing that, hey, I'll have some more time on the second attempt, or so on and so forth. Or you can just play, kind of how teams have been, I guess, approaching it nowadays without the time bank, where you just play consistent and you basically look forward and say, like, well, I just want to complete this in one try. I don't really care how long, how fast I can do like any specific point, but I just want to be able to push through consistently and look to develop my team play and push forward. I feel that the second methodology is going to be more consistent overall. I do think there are going to be teams like Colorado Clutch, which are notoriously very, very aggressive teams, who are going to abuse the time bank and actually maybe find some advantages against teams that aren't able to stave off their first point. But besides the fact, I mean, we would have to obviously wait and see, how different teams react to it, because I don't want to say it's like a completely new meta, but changing the rules like that does influence how teams are going to play on a whole.
Okay, I could definitely get behind that. Do you honestly think that the new changes to the 2CPs are going to be, because I feel like they're accelerating it a lot, but at the same time they're kind of putting it in a position where maybe the team that is behind has a little bit more opportunity than they should have. Of course, with the whole, if you take the point a second time, you get another 30 seconds back than you didn't before, and both teams end up getting that. I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it, that being said, but do you prefer the new system to time bank that they're kind of hinting at if you've got to play it too much, or do you kind of think that the way that they have it right now is, maybe shortened a little bit would be better?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't really played it all that much, so I guess my opinion wouldn't be, like, I guess 100% super informed and stuff like that. But, I do like their approach that they're taking with the new approach to 2CP maps, and I definitely like to see more of it. Anything to really get 2CP maps back into the meta. We did see a lot more of that at the, ESL Atlantic Showdown, and we definitely have seen, these maps are not just gimmick maps, they actually are maps where teams can play with a specific strategy in mind and use that to their advantage. So hopefully we're going to see more of it, and maybe, have the better teams forced to adapt to it and learn those maps.
Yeah, no, I definitely have to get on board with that, especially the positivity of the direction. Blizzard being incredibly open and incredibly aggressive with the changes that they are doing every single season. But the offense and the defense will go ahead and get into the introductions here in a little bit after this first clash, so we did ramble past it. But the offense has already got a Mei. They're going to go on the offense with it. It's Peak. He's going to go ahead and set up a great play. Now that's one of the cheeky things you can do with Mei, is that you can use a wall to go ahead and protect your team. But it looks like, speaking of that, we're going to end up losing. Oh my god, Santa's just going off right now. Gets himself a triple kill, taking out Peak, caps up, and Arc all by himself, basically. Maybe not by himself, but definitely getting those cleanups. And we'll go ahead and get the introductions for them done really quickly. As Santa, the McCree, the savior for his team, is going to be right here. We have Neo is Black going to be picking up the Zenyatta, Lighty going to be picking up a Zarya, Shazy going to be picking up a Lucio, Crazy Enemy going to be on the Reinhardt, and the last but not least, Zone going to be on the Junkrat as they push in the offense of Flare.Esports. And again, Peak this May. It's going to be interesting to see if it can work out for them. This is such a high-risk, high-reward play, but if it works out, it can be devastating. But right now, it looks like Santa, just stock standard McCree play, doing work. A Transcendent's going to be coming out for the offense, though, buying them a lot of HP to fight this, as they don't really have to worry about damage during that. But Zone, 600 burst damage is irrelevant to HPS if you get bursted during it, and that's going to be 2, as he helps Lighty take down Arc as well. And Earthshatter going to go inside the cafe, helping take down that McCree, as Rex is going to end up following. We want to go over to Fate's Wheel as he's continuing to do as much damage possible. Sen's going to get his own Deadeye. This time he gets his up with double kill. Zone's going to end up going down, and now it literally is just the Reinhardt. And that was one of the longest first point clashes I've ever seen, I feel. That was just so drawn out, Scribe, but it looks like the offense should be able to take it here.
Yeah, honestly, the offense, I've seen it. I mean, Peak has been running May in the scrims before, so I wasn't like too surprised to see it. But I was surprised to kind of see their, like, I guess, the composition exactly in terms of like roles, because they're running a single DPS May comp, which I think teams notoriously have said that there's just not enough damage on those compositions, and they typically run like double DPS or something like that. But they are running a D.Va to kind of, I guess, insert more damage and have that, you know, that zone control ultimate potential late in the late game. So let's actually go over that team. We have Zin on the McCree, Arc on the Zenyatta, Peak on the May, Rex on the Reinhardt, Fate's Wheel on the D.Va, and Caps up on the Lucio. But I think moving forward, I think there's actually a pretty strong comp, but it really depends on Fate's Wheel being able to grab a very good ultimate, and Peak as well setting up a lot of big walls. I think that's one of the most broken parts of May's kit, is not the fact her Blizzard or Freeze is good, but the fact that her wall literally denies you a part of the map and denies movement.
Map manipulation is very important in a world where you can take advantage of it, and we'll see if P can continue to, as it looks like it's working out. Now that ice wall, pretty good, going to go ahead and save them from a lot of that damage, but they do also have the sound barrier, as that's going to keep them nice and healthy, not even have to worry about it in the first place, as they continue to push forward. And the time on the clock is pretty good so far, but they do have, you know, the last section to work with, so shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. As actually Crazy Enemy gets caught up by Peak, and this is honestly the favorite part I like about it personally, is that there is so much synergy. If Rex and Peak can play perfectly, there's so many targets that they can just call out and say charge, and I'll wall them, and then you just kill them over and over and over again. But Zen with another Deadeye. Oh no, double kill, maybe no, only a single kill, but a Deadeye now coming out from the defense. Santa going down, so whereas before he lit up, not doing so hot now, and I kind of want to bring it back to you, Scribe, here. Zone sitting on Junkrat through the streets phase. I don't personally think that's the, you know, the best idea, but maybe there's, you know, some thoughts to it.
Honestly, I feel like right now he's just never gotten the opportunity to really switch off of that, because that first point did not look great, and the streets phase didn't look good either. But now he has, I mean, he has Wheel, which is a very strong ultimate, and teams aren't going to expect it this late in the game. My only worry is that May Wall actually could potentially buy so much time for us, and they're going to go in and wall with D.Va.
Fate's Wheel. That's exactly what you were talking about, but who needs Peak in the equation when all you really need is Rex plus Fate's Earthshatter into self-destruct? Very, very simple but powerful combination when executed properly, and it looks like they are just going to go ahead and take it in, I believe, 4 minutes and 24 seconds, plus the time on the clock is 4:26, so will be quite the offensive push coming out, and not too much else to be expected, of course, from the side of Flare.Esports. They've shown a strong play before. We've seen them, we've cast them once before, and like you've said, I'm sure you've seen them in scrims from your team, but you know, kind of go back to that point. If the lineup is really weak because it doesn't have damage, right, then is there extra onus on the combination between Peak and Rex with the charge? Is there extra onus on Arc to be able to be a strong DPS from the support position? Or where do you put the onus on that lineup to really perform if it doesn't have that intrinsic damage?
Oddly enough, it's going to come down to a combination of Peak having really good communication and Arc being able to discord the right targets. For example, you know, May doesn't have that much damage, but if you can add a 30% extra damage or 50% like the last patch, extra damage to like a specific opponent that all your teammates can deal, and you're, for example, specifically attacking the front line or attacking what's in front of you, or maybe putting the DPS in a bad position, all of a sudden that lack of damage, teams, you won't really notice it as much, mainly because the enemies, just the single target enemies are going down faster than usual, and when it's down to 5v6 or 6v5, and I guess in the condition of flares, I guess it doesn't really matter if you have like one less DPS source if they're down one player entirely. So I honestly feel like it's more about Arc, but the big part about Mei is that Mei can be potentially useless damage-wise, but if you're able to, talk well and you're able to communicate well, and then your wall placements are very solid and your team's able to follow up on that, you potentially could win fights all by yourself.
Okay, I can definitely get on board with that, especially with the Discord discussion. I mean, I think that's actually something I didn't even think about. Icicle plus Discord Orb is still a huge damage threat, but we will go ahead and get into this match, guys. The time on the clock already slipping away here. The offense is going to need to get going here. Only 4 minutes remain, and this is a pretty standard play coming out from the Mei. Of course, you can go ahead and ice wall off quite a few spots in the game in general, but not too much we've seen it on Hollywood, because there is that security that they can still go through. But note how most of the team made it through, go ahead and commit to that, and now they're just going to be looking for the reinitiation. Santa's going to go ahead and take out Sin. There is going to be the charge coming out from Ryan, but Peak has to back off. Now going to be dealing with said Reinhardt from the offense, as it looks like Crazy's trying to get fair amount of damage onto Peak, but just great Icicle usage. Going to end up getting Peak a kill, and actually that Ice Wall, great play as well, using it. That's the other benefit. Mei can keep herself alive, and so far, this is just stalling up so much time, and this is exactly what the defense needs. Santa not feeling very happy about that, just going to get frozen, and will end up going down. Lighty going to do what he can to try to get that kill onto Mei, but I don't think he's going to end up getting that, as it is going to be Crazy. Enemy getting frozen up and then shot down by the man himself. Arc getting a double kill. Zenyatta, what a support player, and what a support hero, being able to dish out huge amounts of damage, and the fragging power of a good Zen is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, and that's something I didn't really mention in terms of like, hey, DPS, is that Xin actually has, the luxury of discording Orb and knowing exactly who he's discording. So if you can land headshots like consistently and have with that fast auto animation, you actually might be able to put out a substantial amount of damage. But right here, Peak was just so good at staying alive and cutting damage. But in the background right now, Castle goes down to this. Oh my god, Sana is just taking down so many threats right now. Hopefully Xin gets the return kill, but right now that's just enough damage right now.
Yeah, we followed on the camera after Sana went off, and then we watched Sin walk up behind him and just go ahead and dink him in the back of the head. Gets himself a double kill off the Deadeye, and then Rex is going to go ahead and combo. A total of 3 kills for Sin, 2 for Rex, and that's all that's needed, because of course there was already a dead McCree on the side of the offense. So once again, have to agree with what you're saying, but I have to again also pose the question to you: what's going wrong, or what do you think you want to see changed out here from the offense? I mean, of course it is a Mei, so maybe a more than just the Genji, maybe also running the Tracer to get in the back line.
I mean, I don't know if you need another Tracer in the backline as well. I think it's just the team's not used to dealing with Mei, and the fact that Mei can counter well. But this engage is so distorted. Why did Winston go in solo right now? Reinhardt and Peak are able to zone off the rest of the team, and there's just nothing that Winston can do. And I think that was the intention, was to jump in with Winston and Genji and hopefully get some damage on the backline. But they were just cut off so much, and Peak's zoning skills, well, that was really useful actually.
Ice Wall, like you said, it's not even just the freezing of her kit, it's the ability to create a different layout on the map, and she ends up subsectioning off the offense. Earthshatter hits on 3, Blizzard goes ahead and follows up on 2, and you guys are seeing the remnants of that fight right now, as the offense is going to have to back off, and the side of Papaceca is having a very, very hard time getting anything going for them. In fact, it's a matter of pride at this point, as they do need to get on the first point within the first minute, or in the next minute, otherwise they will be full held, and it wouldn't even matter that there was a stopwatch to begin with in Mei. This is why so many people just want to see her removed from the game, but at the same time, it is just kind of the nature of map manipulation. Graviton surge onto the offense. There is going to be the Transcendence, but a Deadeye goes out for Sin. It's going to take out Shazzy before, I believe, they were able to get up the... There wasn't even a sound barrier. Never mind. Neo is Black going to take the flashbang. Going to have to run away. Will be able to escape. A Peak takes out Zone and Fates as well. And it looks like it's just the beginning of the end here for the offense, as they just don't have the resources. They don't have the ultimates. They don't have... It looks like the coordination to deal with a Mei, and that's what Mei really does too. She punishes lack of coordination, and she makes it that much more obvious when you don't engage properly.
Yeah, and honestly, this is kind of like what a Mei can do. And I wouldn't even say, I don't even know if Peak is like, the best Mei in the world right now or any statistic like that. But Peak has been playing Mei a lot recently. And, the fact that it is that he's just so used to how to use her wall and how to communicate with their team that the fact that players can play around a Mei, even on offense, it speaks volumes of how much this is practiced and how much time gets put in. And, we did see at the Atlantic Showdown, Envy was essentially taken apart by the fact that Rogue was going to run Mei on Han Amora. And the fact that the time differences between how long Rogue was able to defend versus, how long Envious was able to defend was just astronomically large. I think it was close to like Rogue was able to take the points in like 3 minutes, whereas Envy was still struggling to take it like past like 9 or like overtime plus. So that's a clear indicator of what Mei can do. But Peak is just so good, and I think that's like honestly what's so good about the teams playing with Mei and trying new things is that sure, let's say your Mei might not be like the best Mei in the world, but the fact is that you have experience seeing what Mei can do and executing on that, even if you're up against it, I think is very valuable as a whole.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I kind of want to, go to that point, coming from a MOBA background, especially talking on the concept of heroes. Now, of course, in Overwatch, I think it's very important that you're not necessarily a main, right? Like, he obviously, Pika's a strong main, but he's going to have other heroes in his toolkit. But having a hero that you know the most, you're most comfortable with, your main, quote-unquote, whatever terminology in that respect. But the point is that if you're different, right, you feel really good on Mei, you understand Mei, and you play Mei well, and then you bust it out in a bigger event, you're a little, Flare.Esports, not the most well-known team to the average, the casual viewer, or, in that respect might not have even been seen by the casual viewer in respect to the top teams. But if they get into a situation where Peak is able to perform as Mei, and they show off a strategy, like you said, that people aren't ready for, it can really gunk up a lot of people and win you games. And on the note specifically of Mei, it kind of, I remember talking to you, and I know that you expressed, a little bit of frustration with the way it ended up going for Envious, but, I definitely have to, echo some of that frustration for that event, because also, you talk about best Meis, in the world, Peak definitely, after that play, I have to put him up there, but, Tailspin, IDE, of course, needs to be mentioned there, but Tailspin was one of the first ones to really play Mei in officials, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, when he was on IDDQD before they became Team Envious. I might be mistaken there, but I swear I remember seeing a Hollywood game or two where Tailspin was just destroying it as Mei.
Yeah, I mean that's actually something you talked to a lot of the Envious players, and I think Coco mentioned this when I talked to him about it in the interview, but Tail actually plays a lot of Mei and almost demands that they play it almost like every scrim at least once. He'll be like, can we switch to Mei? But the big problem currently is that I don't think teams, there are just so many better choices, right? Like I think when Tails wanted to play Mei in the previous metas, Fair was just a hard counter to Mei as well, because you could just go above the wall and basically chunk her down and force her out of position, which is why Fair is so good against Mei. But I think there were just so many better options that didn't make sense to play Mei. But right now, because coordination, because of Lucio's speed boost is so important, and you're playing a lot of maps with choke points, I think that the fact that Mei is able to, essentially hard counter Lucio's speed ult, because let's say Lucio speeds like your entire team, but only 3 make it through. Essentially, that speed boost is wasted, right? You're not gonna push forward again. In fact, you might actually get zoned out and killed entirely. So I think Mei, there's so many utilities to Mei right now. I think Mei's actually coming into the meta, but more so as your team has to have a very good damage dealer who can play safe and who can make sure he doesn't die, because the big problem with Mei compositions is if your other DPS dealer dies, you effectively lose all your damage in the composition. So it requires having a very strong McCree who's able to stay safe and take pot shots from a distance.
I honestly, when you mentioned the whole idea of Mei, it's kind of a caster thing to be like, oh yeah, I agree, definitely. But I really agree. I really think that analysis, and that's definitely something that, aspiring teams listening to, I definitely think that that's something to be looking into, because Lucio, the nature of the hero is that very hard engage, very hard disengage. A team with a good understanding of game flow can use a Lucio, and that Lucio player can use good game flow to dominate the map. But if you put a Mei in that equation, there's so many little things, right? Like you said, walling off half the team. Yeah, the Lucio can ride up, and sometimes you can run comps that can get over the wall, but that gunks them up. It slows slows him down. That's 2 seconds of the wasted boost. And then factor in, of course, like, I'm not sure if you exactly mentioned it, but of course the wall itself being an object can block Lucio's healing and block his sound barrier. So there's so many cool things that you can do with Mei that I have to agree with you. There's so much experimentation, but I do want to go ahead and say, guys, that we are going to go ahead and go to a short break here. But first of all, there are a lot of you tuning in. Really appreciate that. Awesome. We're going to have a lot more action for you guys today. That was only, can go ahead and enter that in the up next, but that was only the round of 64. We actually have watched 2 rounds of 64 so far today, and we will be watching a round of 32 coming up next for you guys, as that is going to be the side of DV8, who we watched take on Kona Boys and deal with them pretty well. Going to be taking on the side of Flare.Esports, and that's going to be coming up for you guys in just a moment as the lobby fills up. But if you guys have any thoughts, suggestions, or ideas for, of course, Scribe or I, do let us know in the chat. If you guys have anyone that you're cheering for, that quote-unquote great Mei player, as Peak is, you know, talking about himself a little bit, well, you can talk about yourself too, or you could talk about the players, or you guys could talk about any event going on. Of course, any Overwatch action, feel free to discuss about us. But guys, we're going to go to a short break so we can rest our voice, use the bathroom, get water, whatever it may be. Don't go anywhere. Get on social media, let people know about these matches, and we will be right back here with more ESL Go4 EU Overwatch Cup action. Of course, it is the 13th Cup, and we'll be right back.